Do not make that decision today. Not because your pain is fake, not because your exhaustion isn't real, but because the urge that hits you this week, that sudden wave telling you to quit, delete everything, pack it up, walk away, was not born in peace. It was deployed under pressure because something is too close now. And if you've been staring at a ceiling at 4 a.m., too tired to even form a prayer, feeling almost embarrassed that you ever believed God for this in the first place, stay with me. Because what is happening right now is not the end of your story. It is an interception. If this message just stopped you in your tracks, type 999 below, like this video, and subscribe. Anchor your feet before your feelings try to move them. Put whatever is in your hands down for a minute and listen to me carefully. You are not allowed to forfeit today. Not today. Not in this state. Not in this state. Not while your mind is under this kind of pressure. Not while your body is this depleted. Not while your spirit has been hit from 3 directions at once and the enemy is trying to pass off collapse as clarity. Because that is what this is. This is not some clean, enlightened conclusion you reached from a place of deep rest and sober discernment. This is not the fruit of peace. This is not holy closure. This is not wisdom descending gently on your life. This is what it looks like when a targeted wave of discouragement lands on someone right before the threshold and tries to make surrender feel responsible. That is why it came dressed as logic. That is why the voice in your head suddenly got so calm, so measured, so reasonable. Just let it go. Be realistic. You tried. You waited long enough. You gave it your best. Maybe you were wrong. Maybe none of it meant what you thought it meant. Maybe it's time to stop embarrassing yourself. Maybe it's time to stop hoping. Maybe it's time to stop fighting for something that never had your name on it. That voice did not arrive to free you. It arrived to drain your stamina at the finish line. And I need you to hear this before you make one move. You cannot easily take back. Exhaustion is a terrible courtroom. It makes lies sound lawful. It makes sabotage sound mature. It makes fear sound practical. It makes retreat sound like relief. But relief and surrender are not the same thing. And this is where most people misread what is happening to them. They think the fact that they feel done means they are done. They think the fact that they can't feel God means God stepped away. They think the fact that the battle got heavier means they missed the promise. They think the silence means abandonment. No. Sometimes the silence is the sound of a decision already moving in heaven while hell rushes to get you to self-cancel before you see it break through. Stay with me. Because I'm not talking to someone who is weak. I'm talking to someone who has already endured more than most people even know. I'm talking to someone who kept showing up with a shredded heart. Someone who kept praying when prayer felt dry in their mouth. Someone who kept obeying with no applause, no clear timeline, no visible proof, and almost no emotional fuel left. You did not get here because you are fragile. You got here because you have been fighting for a long time, and the kind of fatigue you're feeling right now is not ordinary tiredness. This is not just, I need a nap and a weekend off. This is that deep, strange weariness that gets into your bones, the kind that makes simple things feel heavy. The kind that turns your own room unfamiliar. The kind that has you sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at your phone, staring at a message, staring at a blank screen, and feeling dread move through your stomach before the day even starts. It is the kind of pressure that makes you want to disappear for a while. Not because you hate your calling, not because you don't care, but because you are so drained that even things you once loved now feel like weight. That sudden urge to delete everything. That fantasy of just packing a bag, vanishing, walking away from the assignment, the relationship, the project, the place you once knew God told you to stand in. That thought that says, I cannot carry this one more inch. That did not come out of nowhere. It showed up now. Now. That timing matters. Because the enemy is a decoy artist. He studies thresholds. He studies momentum. He studies the moment a weary believer is still standing, still breathing, still one act of obedience away from seeing why the war got so irrational. And when he cannot kill the promise, he tries to get you to veto it yourself. He tries to put the pen in your own hand. He tries to turn your own exhaustion into the signature on your surrender. That is why this message is here to intercept you. This is the vetoed surrender. This is the rescue that arrives in the 11th hour. This is where heaven steps into the corridor of your collapse and says, "No, not this way. Not today." You do not get to make a permanent decision inside temporary devastation. Look right here. You are tired. You are not foolish. You are shaken. You are not abandoned. You are discouraged. You are not deceived for having believed God. And you are not crazy for wondering if you got it wrong after so much silence. You are human. You are hurting. You are in the middle of pressure that has been designed to make hope feel humiliating. That part matters more than people realize. Because one of the deepest wounds in this kind of warfare is not just pain. It is humiliation. It is that private shame that creeps in and says, maybe I made this all up. Maybe I only called it faith because I needed meaning. Maybe I wasted years chasing a word that was never real. Maybe the people who doubted me were right. Maybe I need to grow up, snap out of it, stop reaching, stop expecting, stop believing. And when that shame mixes with exhaustion, it becomes dangerous. Because then quitting starts to feel intelligent. But what if the intelligence is counterfeit? What if this clear-headed realism is just the enemy lowering the lights in the room so you can't tell the difference between wisdom and wariness? What if this is not a revelation to move on? What if this is an engineered final push to make you abandon position right before the shift hits ground? That is why the pressure got so strangely total. Your body feels hit. Your thoughts feel crowded. Your prayers feel blocked. Your emotions feel flattened. Your memory feels selective, like your mind can only replay disappointment and cannot access one living piece of hope without strain. Even your language changes. You stop saying, maybe God is moving. You start saying, I was stupid to think anything was going to happen. That is not random. That is a tactic. And hear me carefully, because I want to protect you from a lie religious people sometimes say carelessly. This attack is not proof that you have no faith. This is not happening because you failed God. This is not heaven punishing you for being weak. This is not some cruel lesson where you are getting blamed for being exhausted after a long battle. No, a soldier bleeding on the field does not need accusation. They need intervention. So let me say this plainly. You are being met in the place of impact. And if what you're facing includes thoughts of harming yourself or you feel unsafe with your own mind right now, reach for immediate human help at once while you keep listening. Call someone. Go to someone. Heaven can move through people, through hands, through voices, through urgent care, through protection in real time. There is no shame in needing that. Now for the rest of you who know the specific warfare I'm naming, the sudden collapse, the crash that feels darker than what the circumstances alone should explain. I need to show you the mechanism so the lie loses its power. Here's the mechanism. Maximum resistance often appears right before maximum manifestation because what is coming next threatens what has been opposing you. When something has held you down for a season, it does not politely leave just because your breakthrough is near. It thrashes, it presses, it floods the atmosphere. It tries one last concentrated assault, not because it is strong, but because it is running out of time. That is the part nobody tells you. People talk about breakthrough like it always arrives with harps and light and instant confidence. But many times, right before it breaks, everything in your internal world gets tested. Your stamina gets tested. Your interpretation gets tested. Your memory gets tested. Your mouth gets tested. Your willingness to stand one more night gets tested. Why? Because if the enemy can't stop what God decreed, he will try to stop your participation in it. He will try to make you step out of position 1 hour too early. He will try to make you send the text, sign the paper, shut down the channel, quit the work, leave the room, cut off the process, bury the hope, and then call that self-protection. But the real shift did not begin there. It began when you got hit harder than usual for no clear reason. It began when your despair suddenly became disproportionate. It began when giving up started to feel weirdly urgent. That urgency is a clue. Because real peace does not rush you into self-destruction. Real peace does not bully you into irreversible decisions. Real peace does not show up like a cold voice at midnight telling you to burn down what God told you to build. Real peace has steadiness in it, space in it, breath in it, light in it. This thing that hit you has none of that. It has pressure, compression, narrowness, mental fog, a strange finality, a demand that you act now, decide now, quit now, send it now, erase it now, send it now, erase it now. That is how you know this is an ambush. And I know some of you are listening with tears in your eyes because you were this close to writing the message, this close to ending the effort, this close to deleting the work, this close to saying, I can't do this anymore, and meaning it with every exhausted cell in your body. I know. That is why I'm not coming to you with slogans. I'm not telling you to grin your way through warfare. I'm not telling you to fake joy while your nervous system is shaking. I'm not telling you that if you were more spiritual, this wouldn't touch you. I'm telling you that you were intercepted. And the fact that this message found you in this exact window is not small. Because while you were trying to understand why the darkness felt thicker this week, there was a deeper transaction taking place. There was a contest over your agreement. There was an attempt to make you come into covenant with defeat using your own mouth, your own hands, your own decision. There was an attempt to turn a passing storm into a permanent outcome. But heaven is contesting that. There is a veto over this surrender, not because the battle wasn't hard, not because your exhaustion isn't severe, but because you are too close to let despair make policy for your future. Listen carefully to what I'm about to say. The enemy knows that when a person has survived years of pressure, outright temptation often stops working. So the strategy changes. Instead of attacking through obvious evil, the attack comes through wariness, through disappointment, through emotional numbness, through reasonable conclusions, through the very human desire to end pain. That is the decoy. The decoy says, I'm not quitting because I'm under attack. I'm quitting because this is the mature thing to do. The decoy says, I'm not afraid. I'm just finally accepting reality. The decoy says, I'm not abandoning anything. I'm simply done trying. But underneath all that polished language is the same ancient agenda. Move them off the threshold. And this is why I need you to separate two things right now. Rest is holy. Surrender to sabotage is not. Pausing is holy. Self-erasure is not. Taking a breath is holy. Making a grave for your promise while you are concussed in spirit is not. You do not have to pretend you are fine. You do not have to deny the pain. You do not have to call this season easy, but you do have to stop calling the urge to destroy everything wisdom. It is not wisdom, it is warfare. And the moment you name it correctly, some of its power breaks, because then you stop saying, this is who I am now, and you start saying, no, this is what hit me. That changes everything, because a thing that hit you can be resisted. A lie that entered your atmosphere can be exposed. A fog can lift. A verdict can be overturned. A surrender can be vetoed. And in the next part, I'm going to show you what heaven does in this midnight court when the enemy tries to break your mind right before dawn, why this attack intensified now, and how to hold your ground long enough to watch the decoy lose its grip. For now, breathe. You have not been cleared to quit. You have been intercepted, and that means the story is not over. Now let me take you deeper, because once you understand the pattern, you stop panicking every time pressure spikes. There is a moment in long warfare that feels almost impossible to explain to people who have never lived it. It is the moment when you are not just tired of the battle, you are tired of being the one who keeps surviving it, tired of having to be the strong one, tired of holding the line, tired of waking up with responsibilities still breathing on your neck, tired of carrying a word, a promise, a burden, a calling, a family, a relationship, a mission, a future that has cost you more than anyone ever sees. That kind of fatigue does something dangerous if it stays unnamed. It starts turning pain into identity. It starts making you believe that because you have felt delayed, you are denied. Because you have felt pressure, you are unsupported. Because you have felt silence, Heaven has withdrawn. But silence is not always absence. Sometimes silence is legal activity. Sometimes silence is the sound of God refusing to let the enemy hear the whole strategy. Sometimes silence is what surrounds a veto before it lands. And I know that word may hit your spirit hard right now, because that is exactly what you need. A veto, not a suggestion, not a motivational speech, not a vague little lift. You need a hard interruption. You need something stronger than your current emotions. You need heaven to overrule what darkness has been trying to file against your mind. Because make no mistake, this has been an assault on your mind. It has been trying to bring your thoughts into agreement with a conclusion your spirit never truly chose. It has been trying to make you say, "This is over," before God says it is over. It has been trying to make you bury something that is still breathing. It has been trying to make you misread the strain of transition as the proof of failure. That is the setup. And this is where the midnight court comes in. There are seasons when warfare is not just about temptation. It is about testimony. It is about evidence. The enemy drags your recent pain into the courtroom and starts building a case. Look at how tired they are. Look at how long they have waited. Look at how little has changed. Look at the silence. Look at the closed doors. Look at the empty account. Look at the unanswered prayer. Look at the relationship strain. Look at the disappointment. Look at how embarrassed they are to still believe. Look at how even they have started doubting. Then he makes his argument. This one is ready to give up. This one is ready to withdraw. This one is ready to agree with defeat. This one will sign the surrender if I press a little harder. But the part hell miscalculates is this. Exhaustion is not consent. Your weakness is not a contract. Your tears are not a signature. Your confusion is not covenant. And your moment of collapse is not permission for the enemy to rewrite what God already spoke. That is why the veto matters. The veto is heaven saying, I know they are tired. I know the pressure has been severe. I know the warfare has been personal. But I do not accept the enemy's interpretation of their pain. I do not accept this conclusion. I do not accept this timing. I do not accept this timing. I do not accept this outcome. And when heaven vetoes something, it does not matter how persuasive the darkness sounded at 2 a.m. It does not matter how convincing despair felt when you were lying there with your eyes open, staring at that blank ceiling, too drained to even shape a prayer. It does not matter how final it felt when you almost made peace with losing. Heaven does not grade your future by the most exhausted thought you had in the darkest hour. That should relieve somebody right now. Because some of you have been scared of your own recent thoughts, scared by how dark they sounded, scared by how flat everything felt, scared because you almost didn't recognize yourself. You're used to fighting. You're used to pushing through. You're used to holding on. But this week was different. This week, something in you sat down. This week, the weight got in your lungs. This week, even normal tasks felt like dragging concrete. And what made it worse was the logic of it. That's the part that almost got you. If it had felt obviously demonic, you would have resisted it faster. If it had felt obviously irrational, you would have pushed back. But it didn't come sounding wild. It came sounding mature. Maybe it's time to stop. Maybe this is self-respect. Maybe this is growth. Maybe this is what acceptance feels like. Maybe letting go is the healthiest thing, but the enemy is a counterfeiter. He knows how to use language that sounds clean while carrying poison underneath it. So let me expose the poison. When the suggestion is born from sudden despair, intensified pressure, mental fog, spiritual numbness, and a desperate urge to act immediately, that is not peace teaching you. That is the decoy trying to get your agreement before the cloud lifts. And it is a decoy because it only tells one side of the story. It shows you the weariness, but not the reason the weariness spiked now. It shows you the delay, but not the movement happening behind the delay. It shows you the tears, but not the threshold. It shows you the battle, but not the fact that the battle got uglier, because something is closer than it has ever been. That is the mechanics of the 11th hour. Pressure swells because opposition senses change. Resistance peaks because access is being threatened. Confusion intensifies because clarity is near, and surrender gets marketed aggressively because breakthrough is close enough to smell. This is why people make terrible decisions right before relief. This is why people walk out one day too early. Why they send the text they can't take back. Why they torch the bridge they were supposed to cross. Why they leave the field right before the weather changes. Why they call something dead that was only buried under pressure. The 11th hour is brutal because it does not look like a miracle at first. It looks like maximum contradiction. It looks like you having less emotional strength than usual. It looks like hope suddenly feeling expensive. It looks like your mind replaying every disappointment in high definition. It looks like the physical evidence still pointing the wrong way. It looks like you feeling foolish for still expecting God to move when the numbers, the timeline, the facts on the ground all seem to argue against you. That feeling of foolishness is one of the enemy's favorite weapons, because if he cannot stop the promise itself, he will try to shame you out of posture. He will make faith feel childish, expectation feel naive, perseverance feel embarrassing, obedience feel pathetic. He will whisper, "Look at you, still hoping. Look at you, still waiting. Look at you, still talking about what God said when everything visible says otherwise." And if you are depleted enough, you start believing the mockery. That is why I need to say something steady and strong into your spirit right now. You were not foolish to believe God. You were not foolish to obey when it cost you. You were not foolish to stay when it would have been easier to run. You were not foolish to build, to pray, to wait, to love, to prepare, to endure, to hold your place. And you are not foolish now just because the evidence around you has not caught up to the movement in the unseen. Faith often looks strange right before it becomes obvious. Read that in your spirit again. Faith often looks strange right before it becomes obvious. That is why the enemy tries to break your interpretation in the final stretch. Because if he can make you feel stupid, he can make you move. If he can make you move, he can make you break alignment. And if he can make you break alignment, then later he will try to stand over the damage and call it your own wisdom. But heaven is exposing that lie before it matures. This is the rescue operation. And rescue is not always dramatic at first. Sometimes rescue sounds like a firm voice cutting through the fog. Sometimes it sounds like one sentence that reaches you in time. Sometimes it sounds like God saying, "Do not trust this version of your thinking." Sometimes rescue is not fireworks. Sometimes it is interception. Right now, your rescue is recognition. Recognition that this despair had a pattern. Recognition that this pressure had timing. Recognition that the urge to quit arrived with unusual force because it was not neutral. Recognition that what you called a final conclusion may actually be the aftershock of sustained warfare colliding with a threshold moment. That recognition matters because you cannot resist what you keep romanticizing. If you keep calling sabotage closure, you will cooperate with it. If you keep calling panic clarity, you will obey it. If you keep calling exhaustion truth, you will hand it authority it never earned. So strip it of its titles, call it what it is: a targeted discouragement, a threshold attack, a decoy wave, a mind-breaking attempt that did not get final permission. And yes, I said permission. Because there are moments when hell pushes hard, but hard is not the same as authorized. Loud is not the same as legal. Intense is not the same as final. Just because the attack reached your emotions does not mean it reached the throne. Just because it shook your body does not mean it changed the verdict. That should put steel back in somebody's spine. You have been measuring the situation by how it felt in your body, by how flat it felt in your spirit, by how empty the room felt when you prayed, by how many signs seemed absent, by how much physical evidence kept arguing against your expectation. But the verdict over your life is not being written by your adrenaline level. It is not being written by your momentary crash. It is not being written by the loudest voice in the room. It is not being written by the enemy's best closing argument. And this is where hope starts to come back slowly, correctly, layer by layer. Not fake hope, not fragile hype, not the kind of positivity that demands you deny the wound. I'm talking about anchored hope, The kind that says, I may be hit, but I am not handing this pain the keys. I may be low, but I am not making vows from this place. I may not have the full picture, but I can see enough now to know I was under a setup. I may be exhausted, but exhaustion does not get to prophesy over me. That is different. That is the second wind beginning, not a shout yet, not a sprint yet. First, a stabilization. First, the lifting of the false fog. First, the return of proper naming. First, the realization that the urge to erase everything was not a trustworthy instruction. First, the awareness that what felt like your final thought may have been the enemy's final push. And once that lands, something starts to untangle inside you. Your breathing changes. Your thoughts get a little more space in them. The room starts to feel less oppressive. The urge to act immediately starts losing some of its power. You begin to realize, I do not need to obey this darkness just because I can feel it. That is huge, because the enemy was counting on your immediacy. He was counting on you acting while disoriented. He was counting on you moving before the pressure broke. He was counting on you mistaking intensity for truth. But that plan is being interrupted. And the next part is critical, because recognition alone is not enough. Once the decoy is exposed, you need a standstill strategy. You need a stabilizing protocol. You need to know exactly how to hold your ground while this wave passes, how to keep from making irreversible moves while your mind is coming back under divine order, and how to let heaven rebuild stamina in places that have been trembling. Because you do not just need revelation. You need protected time. You need anchored commands. You need your next few steps governed, not improvised. So stay with me. The instruction is coming. The stamina is coming. The breath is coming back. And what the enemy tried to turn into your surrender is about to become the moment you realized you were closer than you thought. Now listen to me with every ounce of attention you have left, because this is the part that will keep you from bleeding out spiritually in the next 3 days. Do nothing drastic for 72 hours. That is the mandate. Not because nothing matters, because too much matters. Not because your pain is imaginary, because your pain is being exploited. Not because you are weak, because you are on a threshold, and thresholds require steadiness more than speed. So here is the standstill protocol. For the next 72 hours, you do not quit. You do not send the final message. You do not make the dramatic announcement. You do not resign from the thing God told you to steward. You do not delete everything in a surge of exhaustion. You do not pack up your whole life because one dark wave told you this was wisdom. You do not confuse the urge to escape with the instruction to move. Stand still. If a text is burning in your hand, do not send it. If a decision feels urgent, delay it. If your emotions are demanding a permanent response, refuse them temporary authority. If your mind is saying, end it, close it, erase it, walk away, bury it tonight, you answer with one sentence only: I have been vetoed from surrender. Say it again: I have been vetoed from surrender. Because this next window is not for reaction. It is for stabilization. It is for nervous system quieting. It is for spiritual reordering. It is for the smoke to clear. It is for the counterfeit peace to be exposed. It is for the strength that was leaking out of you to begin returning in measured breaths. The enemy wanted you impulsive. God wants you anchored. The enemy wanted a signature. God wants stillness. The enemy wanted you to act in the dark. God is commanding you to remain long enough for the lights to come back on. And I need to make this plain, because some of you are so trained to be productive that even now you want to turn this into a performance. You want to rescue yourself through one more burst of striving, one more over-explained prayer, one more late-night push, one more emotional speech, one more frantic attempt to force clarity. No, for 72 hours, your assignment is not to perform. Your assignment is to remain. Remain without wrecking what you cannot rebuild quickly. Remain without making vows from depletion. Remain without handing your future to a mind that has been under siege. Remain without negotiating with that cold inner voice that only got loud after the pressure intensified. This is warfare, yes, but now it becomes disciplined warfare, not frantic, disciplined, not theatrical, anchored, not loud for the sake of sounding strong, steady because your footing is being restored. And this is what disciplined warfare sounds like. It sounds like drinking water before making decisions. It sounds like putting the phone down when your chest gets tight. It sounds like refusing midnight conclusions. It sounds like sleeping before signing anything. It sounds like telling yourself, I am not qualified to destroy my own life from this level of exhaustion. It sounds like stepping away from the keyboard. It sounds like taking the pen out of your hand. It sounds like shutting the door on impulsive endings. Some of you needed that exact sentence. You are not qualified to destroy your own future from this level of exhaustion. That is not weakness. That is wisdom under command. And let me protect you from another trap. During these 72 hours, the enemy may come back and try a different tone. If urgency does not work, he may switch to despair. If despair does not work, he may switch to numbness. If numbness does not work, he may switch to false relief. He may say, see, you waited and nothing changed. He may try to convince you that because the pressure did not vanish in 1 hour, the instruction was empty. Ignore him. These 72 hours are not a magic trick. They are a rescue corridor. A rescue corridor is not always glamorous. Sometimes it is just protected time, protected thought, protected speech, protected movement, protected delay. It is heaven putting guardrails around a wounded warrior so the damage stops expanding. So when the thoughts hit, you do not wrestle every single one to the ground. You do not chase every lie down every hallway. You do not exhaust yourself trying to out-argue darkness at 3 in the morning. You answer simply, not today, not from this place, not under this cloud. I stand still. I remain anchored. I have been vetoed from surrender. And then you breathe again. Because breathing matters right now. You have been living like someone bracing for impact for too long. Your body knows it. Your shoulders know it. Your jaw knows it. Your sleep knows it. Your stomach knows it. Your thoughts know it. Even your prayer life has felt like a clenched fist instead of an open door. That is why this next part is holy. I am not going to hype you. I am going to stabilize you. Right where you are, I want you to let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Loosen your hands. Stop gripping the day like it is asking for one last fight from you tonight. You have already fought. Now receive. Father, in the name of Jesus, I bring before you the one listening who is standing in the wreckage of a week they almost did not survive emotionally. The one whose thoughts got darker than they expected. The one who feels ashamed of how close they came to quitting. The one who is tired down to the marrow. The one who feels like their hope has been skinned alive by delay, contradiction, silence, and repeated pressure. Meet them now. Step into the room they are in. Step into the car. Step into the bathroom floor. Step into the bed where they have been staring at the ceiling at 4 in the morning, too tired to even form the words. Step into the atmosphere that has felt dense, hostile, and airless. Step into the place where despair tried to write policy over their future, and veto it. I ask for a divine overruling, a holy interception, a breaking of the mental fog, a severing of every assignment of sudden surrender, a shutting down of every voice that came dressed as logic but carried the breath of defeat. Let the counterfeit peace crack in their hands. Let the decoy be exposed. Let the pressure that was speaking too loudly lose its authority now. Breathe life back into their lungs. Put strength back into weak places. Put warmth back into numb places. Put order back into scattered thoughts. Put courage back into their chest. Put weight back into their spirit. Put holy resistance back into their bones. Where they have felt flat, lift them. Where they have felt ashamed, cover them. Where they have felt foolish, reassure them. Where they have felt hunted, surround them. Where they have felt alone, make your nearness undeniable. I rebuke the lie that they were wrong to believe you. I rebuke the lie that their obedience was wasted. I rebuke the lie that this long fight means abandonment. I rebuke the lie that exhaustion gets the final word. I rebuke the lie that because they almost quit, they are disqualified. I rebuke the lie that this threshold is a grave. No, this is not a grave. This is a threshold. This is not the burial of their promise. This is the place where their surrender was intercepted. So steady their heartbeat, steady their thoughts, steady their mouth, steady their hands, steady their next 72 hours. Place watchmen over their speech so they do not curse what you are still building. Place watchmen over their hands so they do not destroy what only needed rest. Place watchmen over their phone so they do not send what hell drafted. Place watchmen over their sleep so torment does not preach all night. Place watchmen over their memories so disappointment is not the only thing they can recall. Place watchmen over their perception so they can tell the difference between urgency and instruction, between panic and prophecy, between sabotage and peace. And where stamina has leaked out of them for months, even years, begin the infusion now. Infuse them with durable strength. Infuse them with clean breath. Infuse them with settled focus. Infuse them with enough light for the next step, then the next one, then the next one. Not all at once, but enough. Enough to stand, enough to wait, enough to refuse, enough to outlast this wave, enough to wake up tomorrow without signing their own defeat, enough to make it through these 72 hours under cover. Let a second wind come on them now. Not a reckless wind, a steady one, not a noisy one, a sustaining one, not an emotional spike that disappears by morning. A grounded return of stamina, a deep interior, yes, that does not need applause, a fierce, quiet knowing that they are still here, still held, still under instruction, still inside the will of God, even if the battlefield has been brutal. And I say over the one listening, you will not forfeit at the threshold. You will not cave under concentrated warfare. You will not mistake a final assault for a final outcome. You will not hand the enemy your agreement in the hour he is most desperate to get it. You will stand, you will remain, you will breathe, and you will see what this pressure was trying so hard to stop you from reaching. Now hear me one last time. For the next 72 hours, keep your world small and stable. Talk less, rest more. Delay anything permanent. Refuse drastic moves. Refuse despair's deadlines. Refuse the theater of collapse. If you need to cry, cry. If you need to sleep, sleep. If you need to step back from noise, do it. If you need support, reach for it. But do not surrender. This is not the hour for self-erasure. This is the hour for anchoring. You do not need to solve your whole life tonight. You do not need to understand every delay tonight. You do not need to force one more sign tonight. You do not need to prove your faith by performing while wounded. You need stamina. You need steadiness. You need protected time. You need the cloud to lift enough for you to realize that what felt like your ending was actually an ambush at the edge of your breakthrough. And when this wave passes, and it will, I believe there is going to be a holy relief in you. Not because the whole war was fake, but because you will realize you almost walked away one day too early. You will realize the darkness got louder because something was shifting. You will realize that heaven did not shame you in your collapse. Heaven came for you in it. That matters, because warriors do not only need weapons, they need rescue, they need covering, they need permission to remain still when every demonic voice is screaming for movement. They need someone to say, hold the line, breathe, do not sign, do not burn it down. Dawn is closer than this pressure is admitting. So hold the line, not forever, just here, just now, just through this corridor, just through these 72 hours, then look again. Because I believe with all my heart that by the time this window closes, the fog will not own you the way it tried to. The pressure will not be narrating your future the way it tried to. And the same person who almost surrendered is going to feel something return to them that hell did not expect. Holy defiance. Not loud, not arrogant, just unmovable. The kind that stands up slowly, wipes its face, takes a full breath and says, I see what this was now. You almost had me, but you did not get me. And that right there is the second wind. Take it, protect it, stand in it. You have been vetoed from surrender. If you are standing still for the next 72 hours, Type "I won't quit" in the comments, like this video, and subscribe. Let this be the moment your feet anchored and your surrender got vetoed.